This program is part of the Infinite Potato Alliance. Visit us at infinitepotato.com.
I'm Shane Thomas, and this is Analyzing Doctor Who. I'm joined today by Rick Tetrault and Emma Foster, and we're here to preview the new upcoming series of Doctor Who, which will be debuting on the 10th or 11th of May, depending where you are in the world. That's one of many other things that we'll be discussing. And if you have any thoughts on what you're about to hear from us or anything else Doctor Who based, you can email us at analyzingdoctorwho@gmail.com. So if we start first with the new trailer, because we're recording this the day after the new trailer dropped. So just very quick thoughts on that, Rick. You've seen it a couple of times.
Yeah, I've watched it a couple of times, showed it to my wife. I'm really excited. I think it looks like a lot of fun. It looks like they're going to do something that Doctor Who has not always been too diligent about, and that is having looks like there's going to be consequences to changing things in the past or in the future, I guess, wherever they are. And, you know, that's kind of something that they've never really worried about too much in Doctor Who. So I'll be excited to see what they do with that.
Okay, and Emma, I'm assuming you've seen the trailer as well.
I have. I've seen it a couple of times myself as well. Yeah, very excited. I was sort of at a level of like, okay, I'm looking forward to it. And obviously, like I say, about the when it's actually dropping controversy, it kind of dampened me a little bit, which obviously we'll talk about. But this sort of perked me up quite a lot because, you can see the Disney money in this one, can't you?
I mean, trailers are always about setting a tone, and the biggest tone setter I got from watching this trailer was money, 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 money. Just so much money. So much money has clearly been spent compared to, I'm sure Russell looked at the budget for this compared to the budget for the 2005 series of Christopher Eccleston, and the Hallelujah choruses probably went off in his brain.
I think for Series 2, I remember the number that I'm sure was quoted, is they were making that series for less than £1 million per episode, which even with inflation, as it has been in, the subsequently nearly 20 years since they made that, cry, is not a lot of money, considering that even the budgets for any other contemporary sci-fi, even at the time. I mean, considering the amount of effects they're having to do with basically no money, yeah, you can really see the kick up in scale.
I mean, 100%. Even Moffat, I understand. I think Moffat's tenure was $1 million, so it wasn't that much more.
Yeah.
I think I said it before, if you're working American TV and you're looking at that budget, you're like, wait, you want us to make a genre fiction show with this money? You want 13 episodes. 13 episodes of what? And sometimes it's been to the charm of the show having to do more with less. And I still think by its standards, it's still having to do more with less. But the less is more than it was. It was more than it was in the past. And I mean, there are some visuals, and from the very first bit of the trailer, the way the TARDIS pulls up to screeching halt inside unit, we've never seen something like that. And I refuse to believe it's because no one ever thought of it. But someone thought of it, and then someone else said, yeah, we can't do that. It's like, okay, we'll have to do something else. We'll just have the TARDIS materialising as it does every week. But yeah, you can do that kind of stuff. And it fits with what I think RTD's like, what I'd expect to get from him, which is fast and loud and eventful. And I mean, this kind of leads into our next thing we're going to talk about, Emma, which is not just a trailer, but coming into this new series where about 6 weeks away by the time this podcast goes up, probably be 2 weeks away. So just the general vibe check in terms of how you're feeling about more Doctor Who on the way.
If you'd asked me this question pre the trailer drop-in, I would say my vibes were kind of nah, because again, I mean, we'll talk about the dating and stuff, but I was kind of an okay. Because I think the more I was thinking about, I was happy with Church of Ruby Road, but I think the more I was thinking about kind of what we knew so far about the series and the whole hoo-ha about Millie Gibson leaving, not leaving, getting kind of slammed by the tabloids, and my vibes were kind of off. But yeah, this has kind of G'd me up a bit and kind of got me up. Oh yeah, okay, we're getting into something now.
And Rick, your general state of enthusiasm.
Yeah, I think I mirror what Emma said. I did not particularly care for the church on Ruby Road. I liked the Ruby stuff, and I liked the interactions between her and the Doctor. The whole goblin troll or whatever the hell thing, that whole storyline just left me cold. I liked Ncuti as the Doctor. What's the actress's name? I can't remember it offhand.
Millie Gibson.
Millie Gibson, thank you. I find her quite passable. I don't really have a strong feeling about her yet. Now, I know this may be just the trailer trying to entice people in whatever way they can, but they certainly seem to be sexying her up a bit. At least for the trailer, there was a lot of cleavage shown, which I'm not used to seeing from Doctor Who. Not that that's necessarily a good or bad thing, just it was something I noticed. So I don't know if that's going to be a way they're going. I don't know. And the only reason I bring it up is because as a Star Trek fan, we've seen what happens when execs go, oh, we've got to sexy the show up. And then so I hope it's just we're going to pick these three because it's in the trailers to put them in the trailer. Just
quickly on that, because you two will know this better than me. Didn't they kind of do something similar, if that's what's going on? And to repeat, this isn't a value judgment, good or bad, but didn't they kind of do that a bit with Nicola Bryant as Perry as well? Or am I mistaken?
Oh god, yeah. Well, I mean, back in the day as well, Leela, Louise.
Oh yeah, of course,
Leela,
yeah.
They basically dressed her in like 3 shabby leathers back in the day. The whole point was keep the dads in the room after Match of the Day.
And one of them saw 1 million years BC and was like, we need that for our show.
Do that, yeah, exactly. So the companions being dressed in basically next to nothing is not a new idea. I mean, Jo as well, with some of them skirts, you basically see what she'd have for breakfast in some of them. I mean,
I can say that, but no, that's a fair point. Sorry, Rick, I didn't want to cut you off. You had anything else?
Oh no, I was just, I get called out on that sometimes. Where I'll be like, what is Star Trek doing? And they're like, go look at some of the older episodes and shut up. So.
Yeah, how much clothes was that green woman wearing?
But yeah, after seeing the trailer, it certainly felt energetic, and I mean, we're definitely seeing Ncuti as an action doctor, running, jumping, climbing trees kind of thing, which will be fun. We haven't seen that for a while, and I'm totally down with whatever he's bringing to the table. I feel now the same way I did before Jodie started. We were all excited about, we've got the first woman doctor, and Jodie Whittaker is awesome, and I just hope that he gets, I think we're going to see that, I hope he gets better writing than she did.
Energy is the word that I've got in terms of general thoughts. Energy and enthusiasm I'm getting from so much about this, and like in a weird way, sometimes the best, not just Doctor Who, but the best a show can be is we've got new episodes coming, but we haven't got to them yet because it's just all potential and it's possibility and it's what it could be. And I think generally as fans, we're generally, unless we have a clear reason not to, we're inclined to accentuate the positive and think how good things can be. Now, sometimes that runs up against the ceiling of reality when you see the episodes and the good ideas on paper actually don't work out to be great episodes. But right now, it just feels like a very exciting time because I think no matter what we're getting, this is going to be an inflection point in the history of Doctor Who. This is definitely a new era in certain ways of the show being presented, maybe even not just the manner in which it's delivered, but the actual show, the way the stories are told, the thing the stories are going to do, definitely how it's going to look.
Ages and ages ago, we were talking about Disney kind of picking it up, and that's the thing with Disney, although it's a bit of a Pandora's box, for want of a better thing, of like, obviously, Doctor Who's hitched its wagon to Disney, that's it. It's kind of a one-way street. Now we're on this street. Should they drop it? Should something happen? Should Disney Plus go down in flames? I wouldn't say Doctor Who would die, but the way people are coming to it and watching it with this budget and that sort of thing, Doctor Who would have to fundamentally change again. Not that it couldn't do it, and that, we've been through this before as a fandom, but it would take a long time for it to recover, and it wouldn't be the same again. And it would probably mean that obviously Russell wouldn't be associated with it. But I was going to say, because now we're on this bus, it's only going one way. That's either a bad thing or a good thing, depending on what you feel. And I think, again, pushback from the fandom lately about obviously the announcement of the dates and things. This is the consequences that, with one hand, we've got all this budget and all these actors and all this sort of thing, but then you have to take the other with it as well. And how much you're prepared to tolerate that is very kind of, I think people were kind of turned on and turned off by it.
Well, yeah, we will definitely delve deep into that actually very, very quickly. Only thing I just wanted to, that came up in terms of leading into the show is, okay, we'll talk about him as well, but I have heard in some very positive talk from people who've seen episode 3 about Ncuti's performance. And from what we've seen so far, even just going on his Ruby Road work and the little bits I've seen from him in Sex Education, is that he seems to will have the ability, obviously depends how it's written, but has the ability to go from very lively and funny and charming to deeply sad. And you even get that in the Church of Ruby Road scene when he's looking at the foster kids, all the foster kids on the fridge, and Ruby asks, who have you got? And he says, I've got no one. And also when Ruby disappears, you do see shooting very, very quickly, but not I didn't find it in a way that jarred. Like a reservoir of trauma that is always going to be there with the Doctor, as long as the Doctor remembers all their past lives, which this Doctor does. So it's good just if you're writing the show that you can take him there and he'll carry it off. In his toolbox, he's got that tool there. So if we want to take a story that way, we don't have to think, is this going to work? Is he going to pull it off? We know he can. Like, whether he's going to be the best Doctor or not, there's no way of knowing. But he might be the ideal Doctor for this era of the show. He might not be the best Doctor, but he might be the best Doctor right now. I think of other Doctors who, some of them absolutely adored, but would have fit this era of the show. I mean, another thing to consider is, because I was thinking, obviously, we're going to do a preview episode ages ago, and one of the things I was thinking is that, okay, well, RTD's back. Well, one thing we're probably going to get is plenty of kind of the episodes referencing real world stuff. Because if you think back to his first time round, there was a lot of stories just touching upon issues that were particularly in Britain that were in the news. So you think of the Sontaran two-parter with the pollution and the cars, the Atmos system, which played into like GPSs, sat-navs were becoming more common. I mean, everyone has them now, but back in the day, they were just beginning to be a thing. And also the notion of the climate emergency and cars pollution. You felt that was there. School reunion when Sarah Jane comes back. In the plot, there's a whole thing about school lunches, and that was not long after Jamie Oliver had his campaign to make school lunches healthier over here, and that had become a big news story. And I understand he tried it in America, and America basically told him to fuck off. But that was about trying the chips, and about how every child in school was being served chips, and it wasn't good for their general development. And there's so many anti-war messages, because we were in Afghanistan and Iraq at that time as well. So there was a lot of anti-war stuff happening. So I thought, okay, you know what we're probably going to get this tenure? Like, we'll probably get some global pandemic of some kind. Story, and we may actually get this because we know Rose Noble, we're going to see her again. There'll be stuff around gender identity. Well, we're going to have something with some like evil tech overlord, some Elon Musk-like character. I thought these things are definitely going to happen. However, the talk coming out, and even with the trailer and stuff, is that won't happen as much as I anticipated, because Russell himself, I've seen a couple of things are spoken about, and this reference to kind of the use of the goblins and Church of Ruby Road and the idea of chance and coincidence, about leaning more into the fantastical. When we think of Russell, unfairly to an extent, we think of him as like, oh, he just does a soap opera really, just with a time-travelling blue box. But he hasn't been speaking like that. He's been speaking like doing things more fantastical. And in the trailer itself, there's a couple of comments. There's a line from Kate Lethbridge Stewart about things appear to be going more and more supernatural. The Doctor talking about the world is vast and has powers beyond understanding. So I'm getting the idea that, and this we'll see him off in a minute, but this might fit more into the realm rather than social commentary. It'll be a lot more wild and wacky and things that don't feel like ripped from the headlines at all.
Can I just say, I can hear Rick going, oh no, inside his brain right now.
No, not at all. I was thinking, because my problem with the church on Ruby Road wasn't that there were goblins in it. I just didn't think what they did with them was particularly interesting.
Right. Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Now,
if it's a good story, I'm all for monsters and stuff.
I think you're right, Shane. I think from my impression from watching the trailer a couple of times is that I think that the overarching idea of this series is going to be that in Wild Blue Yonder, the Doctor fundamentally changed the nature of the universe with the whole salt stuff. So that means that everything is kind of now changed to a point where he's like, what is going on here?
Mavity and stuff as well.
Mavity and all that sort of thing, yeah. So I think that's going to be the overall kind of vibe. And I think that the fact that they pointed out that thing of the Doctor saying to Ruby's mum, I will keep her safe. And I was like, oh my God, she's dead. And I think that there's going to be like a sort of cyclical thing of him like trying to go back and like fix it and like do that whole kind of loop-de-loop thing. But it did bring up a bit of a fundamental problem that I've got. I don't know if it's with RTD. I don't want to try and get too deep in the weeds here, but I was like, obviously all the thing of like people putting out trailer breakdowns and
I try and avoid those.
Yeah, but you've got the thing, but I mean, it's not just that. It's the stuff that we've been showing already. We've got the thing with Mrs. Flood, so the Anita Dobson character. We've got obviously this overarching idea. We've got the whole thing of like the Ruby and her mum, whoever that is, leaving her at the church, that sort of thing. And I was like, can we just try and have one series where we don't have not one, not two, but multiple mystery boxes and all this sort of thing of like, who's this, who's that? I don't mind an overarching story. The whole series, it's fine, but I think it's kind of one of the problems I've had with Star Trek Discovery as well. It kind of almost can't exist without these crutches of like, I don't want to say clickbait because that's too simple, but like these whole kind of little things of like putting stuff in trailers and putting bone breakdowns, and then this mystery character, you have to pause the thing and read a sheet, and then that's got a thing that ties into episode 8. I was like, can we just have stories?
But here's why I definitely agree with you is, there's nothing wrong with overarching arcs, but what you can't do is, I say you can't, of course you can, but what you shouldn't do is, okay, I know this wasn't good, but it's going to pay off in like next series. You can't do that. There's been a lot of talk about Ruby's a mystery, find out about the mystery of Ruby Sunday. You wouldn't think they'd say that unless it's the specific thing about Ruby, not the entirety of her character, but the specific thing about her will be resolved by the end of episode 8. But what you don't want is to leave something... and you don't have to find out everything, but something massively important open that we just don't find out until 2025 or not at all. That then becomes frustrating.
The way that Russell's been talking is the Mrs. Flood stuff isn't going to be resolved this series. And you've got the whole, this sort of political party thing as well, which is in one of the episodes. The
Inirim Bernard character. Yeah, what is it? Oh, God, because there's been posters. There have been posters.
Yeah, I can't remember what it's called.
It's not Best for Britain, but it does seem very like... America, well, not America first, but Britain first.
Yeah.
It does seem like the Emma Thompson character from Years and Years.
Let me guarantee, as your MP, I will go to Parliament on your behalf, and I will find those CEOs in California, those high-tech giants, those men, and I will bring them back here, not to appear in front of a select committee. I will bring them here to stand trial. I will bring them here to find them guilty. I will bring them here to jail them. Are you with me? Well then, ladies and gentlemen, tweet that.
Yeah, exactly. So he wasn't even in the trailer, so we got that coming up. You've got the Susan Twist character thing, which is ongoing as well. So there's at least 4 mystery boxes we're talking about already.
And less episodes.
And 8 episodes.
That's fair. I think the thing with that then is that again, in and of itself, that's fine, but you can't do filler episodes then.
Got to be all gas, no breaks then. If we've got to do 8 episodes, one of my ongoing beefs, and it feels like they're going to do it with Series 5 as well of Discovery, is that they feel
I've also been making that same complaint about Discovery. Just do a story. It doesn't have to be
just do a story.
Figuring shit out every season.
That is a potential fair point. There is a lot up in the air, and if you can get it back down, then that's fine. And there's no reason you can't. But it does need a lot of discipline as far as how it's all put together. The one thing is that, again, I suspect that because Russell does have access to more, that it's more like things that I wished I could have done first time round that I now can. Now you obviously don't want to overstuff yourself. Your eyes can't be bigger than your stomach. I definitely think that's I don't even know if concern's the right word, but it's something we should be keeping an eye out for. And
I feel like I would be more okay with it if it wasn't literally every series we've had since the return has had some element of that. And also, I think as well with like the whole Who is Ruby Sunday mystery, well, we've already done something like that with Clara. We had like a whole series of that with Clara. The whole new political party, well, that's Mr. Saxon / the Master again, kind of giving me vibes of like, I've seen this before, Russ, so unless you're going to do something really fresh with it, then I think that's why I was getting pre the trailer, my meh vibes were kind of stepping up.
That's something also we have to keep an eye on week to week when we do our weekly episodes. And I think maybe the biggest headline about the show coming back was when the start time of the season premiere first episode was revealed. Because first it wasn't the first episode, it's 2 episodes. So we're getting 2 episodes to begin. That in and of itself, that's nothing really like to panic about. But what did really get headlines was when we saw the time. So yes. It's going to be simulcast, same time around the world. I think we all expected that, as I think it should be. But what was a surprise is that it will be airing in the US at 7 p.m. Eastern on Friday, May the 10th. So that means that in the UK it will be debuting not on the 10th, but at midnight on Saturday, May the 11th. And it will be debuting on iPlayer, not on television. So it can be watched on iPlayer at the same time. And then it will be on network television, on BBC, standard TV. So it is Saturday prime time, which is positive. But it does mean that if you want to watch it when it is initially available for people like me and Emma, you're going to have to stay up through the night up until probably around 2 a.m.
I mean, this is the thing, right? I mean, because initially I was like, oh, it's quite exciting. But then I remembered I've got a 3-year-old. Having a toddler, we would have probably, got the beers in, had some mates round, done a midnight showing or something. But obviously, I think a lot of people just can't practically do that. And it means that, obviously, all the kind of Doctor Who nerds have to basically stay off the internet until we can watch it. Because the BBC's policy is, once it's available, we just post spoilers. Because it's out.
Well, even if the BBC don't, everyone else will.
Everyone else will.
Even if they didn't, you'd have to stay off the internet anyway.
Yeah, you basically got to stay off. So basically, it's that nice thing of like, we can watch it over breakfast, you can watch it whenever, fine, great. But it's just not really very practical. And I was like, okay, obviously a lot of people were pissed off. But again, this is behind the Disney Plus thing of like, what we lose on the swing of like chronically online Doctor Who nerds, we gain on the roundabout of people coming into the show who are going to be excited by being on in prime time in the States. This is the deal with the devil we've made. This is kind of the fallout that I think people here were worried about was going to happen, because this has caused no end of angst in the Foster household, because Chuck has not missed the transmission of a Doctor Who episode going out live since 1978. He's like, well, do I watch it on iPlayer? Does that count? Do I watch it on telly? So he's having a bit of an existential crisis.
Rick, we come to you because this, in theory, works out great for you, doesn't it?
No, because I won't be able to watch it at 7 p.m. on Friday anyway, because my wife will be at work and we watch Doctor Who together. I heard about it yesterday, I think was my first inkling of hearing that there was a kerfuffle about the time it aired. I didn't really pay much attention to it because I know it's on Disney Plus now, so I can actually, if I wanted to, watch it as it airs. But usually, up until now, I've always watched it on Amazon, where I had to wait till the day after y'all saw it. So I'm used to waiting a day anyway. And I guess the spoilers aren't as bad here as they are over there, or at least I've kind of gotten pretty good at avoiding them. To me, and now I fully understand and appreciate, believe me, I do, Emma, the kid thing. It seems to me that we're increasingly not having to be concerned with when a thing airs, because we're a streaming generation now. We tend to watch things when we want. So I was a little puzzled by, because I didn't really look into the details, and so this is really the first time I'm hearing what exactly they're doing to you. And yeah, that kind of sucks.
Because I think as well, they're trying to kind of have their cake and eat it in kind of a way of like, they're doing the iPlayer thing, but also they're hyping up the whole Eurovision thing, because it's on the same night as Eurovision.
Yeah, I forgot to mention that. So yeah, potentially this might be like the gayest day of TV in British TV history.
Well, I mean, because that's it. The Venn diagram of Doctor Who fans and people who take Eurovision very seriously is a circle. So yeah, it's going to be a big old gay day on BBC One.
As soon as I saw this, my initial thought was, what? And then the second thing I realised is, what this all is Doctor Who saying, hi America, hi America. That's what this start time is, and the promotion. Even the trailer, we didn't mention the trailer. The trailer dropped, I believe, around 1 p.m. Eastern. So we had to wait till like 6. Like, I was at work like yesterday in the office, just surreptitiously trying to check, probably not surreptitiously at all, but trying to check when's it dropping, and nothing. And then I went to the cinema afterwards, so I didn't see it until coming back home from the cinema around 10 p.m. And it clearly dropped to try and be in line with more people interested in America than anywhere else. The show is frantically waving to the States from across the room, trying to catch its eye. And the uncomfortable thing about this is that I do get why they're doing that. Russell has not come back to the show just to keep it going. He's come back to the show to try and grow it to the extent where it doesn't need someone like him. And you can't do that without something of a new audience and new fans, which he kind of did the first time round. And I get why he's like the most reliable place, the biggest, almost untapped source is America. Because someone like Rick, who's been a fan for the longest, and is American, I know he's actually in a significant minority.
Oh, yeah.
We can't do this with a significant minority. We're not going to keep getting the money with a significant minority. We need people to find this show and discover it and fall in love with Ncuti the way they fell in love with David Tennant. So I totally understand why they're doing this. That said, yes, in some ways, Doctor Who is currently the biggest pick-me girl in the universe, saying, look at us, look at us.
It sort of reminds me, actually, it's kind of just brought to mind, obviously being an American sport enjoyer over here, sort of reminds me a bit of why the NFL are like, have multiple games in the UK. They're having one in Brazil this year. There's one's in Germany. Baseball is caught in over here. There's multiple games here.
NBA is a game in France.
Yeah, so obviously their thing of like, well, we're pissing off all these home fans who are missing a home game because they've gone over to wherever. But they're like, well, it's reached saturation point in the States. The only new fans are the ones that are being born currently. Well, there's this whole untapped huge amount of people in Europe who have wanted to see it. So we piss off people who are going to watch it anyway, but we gain so much more on the swing round. So that is on a smaller scale, obviously, is what's happening, I think.
As a business model, it does make whether it works or not is a different issue, but you see the rationale to it because that is a very good point about the sports, that they're like, we're saturated in America. The NFL can't get any bigger in America.
No, it's saturated. Everyone who's watching the NFL is watching it, unless they're literally a fetus.
It has the whole country. So where are the growth areas? Overseas.
Yeah, exactly. Unless you expand it to a bigger league or have more games, which is they're thinking about, there's no more to do. I kind of wish if we're going to do a midnight thing, then lean right into it. Like, get into the cinemas. Remember when they did for the 50th anniversary? Do that. Do like a midnight release, and then people can go and watch it at the cinema, like they do with Star Wars films. If we're going to go hard.
It's the first year, so some of this stuff they're trying, they'll ditch. And just because it's a bit of trial and error going on.
I've got a feeling this won't stick, but it's basically not up to us.
No.
What we do, they don't give a shit. It's going to be what happens in the States. And I thought the other thing that popped up in my mind was, because there's this new Star Wars series dropping in June.
Yeah, the Acolyte, yeah.
It's going to be dropping halfway through a new series of Doctor Who also. So it's not even getting its own time to shine. It's going to be run over by another Star Wars series. So I was like, wow, we're just adding another series to this bloody mob.
Yeah, it's not the first time they've done that, but yeah, normally they would try and leave gaps for their big IP stuff. There have been times when I think there's been Marvel and Star Wars overlaps. There has been in the past, but yeah, the point is definitely sound. And one thing I think that this will do, that this will change, and I don't necessarily mean ruin, but this will change the overall collective experience. Not individually. You want to watch Doctor Who, you watch the show. We're all going to watch it. It's not like, oh, midnight, I'm not watching no more. But this does change the collective experience. To Emma's point about social media, especially that. When you think of the 60th anniversary episodes, and to an extent Christmas as well, there was episode finished, what's social media saying? And you can't do that as much. And there might be people who would post stuff online who might wait because I'm going to post anything about this. No one's up right now anyway.
But that's the only really reason to have social media anymore, is that water cooler thing of like, we're all seeing the same thing at the same time, so let's chat about it. So it does kind of fracture that base. I think as well there is a bit of the old, I don't want to call it xenophobia, it's a bit too strong a word, but that whole thing of like, this is a fundamentally British show. It's like if they sort of suddenly said, we're moving all Cornish pasty production to San Antonio.
Well, what this is, because this is something that's happening in football as in English soccer right now, because like the big clubs, like even the ones that Rick has heard of, they tend to have global fan bases these days. And there has been almost a little internecine, I hate to call it culture war, it's a nonsense thing, but between fans of a club who grew up, been fans through 3 generations, they live in the area, maybe they live near the stadium, they go every other week to see their team, and then fans who are abroad who maybe have never been to the stadium, may never be able to go to the stadium, and they watch online, and this collision between, and I'm using heavy quotation marks, but real fans v plastic fans. And to your point, Emma, that the thing about Doctor Who being a British show, which it is in terms of where it comes from, where it's produced, but I think that has to change, to be honest with you. I think the idea that this is a British show and the Americans and the Australians and the Canadians and the Spanish and the Chinese and the Brazilians almost watch it because we let them, that mindset needs to go. That mindset has to stop. Because first, it's not true, but that mindset, we can't be doing this because that actually will hinder any progress and growth of the show rather than help it if fans are now arguing amongst themselves about, well, I'm a proper fan because I watched when we only had 4 channels and you lot had to wait to watch it on PBS, and you got the episodes 6 months later than us. You can't be doing this, we're proper fans and you lot over there aren't, or you're new, so you don't count. That kind of, and look, we know what fandom can be like, but that kind of preciousness of a fandom, it will only be a negative for the show if certain fans from our country start getting overly precious about how people interact with the show.
I'd get the vibes of, like, you know, being a fairly small British club that's suddenly taken over by the Saudis, and everyone goes, yay, but also, oh God, no.
Well, yeah, I mean, there is that. Well, Manchester City is even a better example, because we've seen the takeover and what that's done for them. And are they like the same club they were basically when they were shit? And it's like, no.
Where were you when we were shit?
Yeah. And then you got the precious fans that we were, but when we weren't even in the Premier League, we went every week. And it's like, well, congratulations. You don't get a special prize for that. You know, you love your team. Newer fans love the team too. Let's love the team together. So I'm very much of the mindset of, yes, there'll be new fans. Yes, there will be some who maybe didn't take the show seriously and engage with it in a different way. And that's fine, because at one point, that was us. At one point, we were all that same new fan. None of us came out the womb with an encyclopedic knowledge of Doctor Who in our heads. So
I don't know, I think Chuck might have.
Yeah, it's fair point. Fair point. What was it, 1978, you said?
Yeah.
He might be the timeless child in that respect.
If this works, I hope it does, because back during the David Tennant years, I was actually not only able to talk Who with my students, they were like rabid about it. Now, hey, anybody watch Doctor Who? What? Oh, yeah, I've always wanted to, but I have, you know, it was huge over here for however long Tennant was on. And then as soon as he left, it dried up.
Because that's the thing. Now they want to capture, because obviously they want to capture the people who were 8 when David Tennant was on and loved him, and now grown-ups, again, sadly, because it's been so bloody long, and try and draw them back in, and their kids. That's what they're trying to do with it.
One of my younger sisters said when she stopped watching, she said, the show kind of had a pull factor on you like back then, and that's what I think Russell's trying to do, is that magnetism reactivate, that pull factor to pull people in, because I don't think you can rely on it being a show that it's just on and people will watch anyway. We will, but that's not enough.
Yeah, it's not that anymore. It just ain't anymore.
Yeah, and genre fiction is, in terms of television, is not like that. The whole TV landscape's different. So you can't, and I don't think Russell's trying to, you can't just, we'll just do what we did in 2008. You can't do that same thing. And I do think part of that is UK fans are going to have to learn to share the show. It doesn't just belong to us, because it is more explicitly than ever before, Doctor Who's intending to be a global show, not a British show. It's a global show. Just a lot of the most popular shows in the world, wherever they come from, they're seen as global properties. So Doctor Who is trying to be a global property. We don't know whether it'll work or not, but I totally get why he's doing it. And if it does bring about for the show what happened last time, then it will be more than worth it. But the one thing I do not want to hear, and I know we're going to, I don't want to hear a single word of, I don't want to hear shit from no one about TV ratings.
Oh my God, this is like the most tedious debate I've ever heard in my life.
I don't want to see shit from any newspaper, from anyone with their own fucking YouTube channel. I don't want to hear Doctor Who ratings lowest than ever before, Doctor Who ratings tanking. I don't want to fucking hear none of that. Because once you make the decision to put it on streaming, simulcast it, but essentially different times of day for everyone, and then you're putting it on TV later in the day when some people already watched it, because I will have watched it before then, for it's on TV, then the whole ratings thing is a non-issue.
It's the most useless statistic ever now.
And it wasn't that accurate to begin with when they actually used it anyway.
Yeah. It was always only ever a guesstimate.
Yeah, it was always a guesstimate. Still is now.
It's impressive that, I mean, Doctor Who is still banging on about one episode of season 15 where 18 million people watched it, but they always leave out the part where everyone else was on strike, so there's literally nothing else on telly. That's why everyone bloody watched it.
So yeah, I don't want to hear nothing about that. But that is something that, and part of the reason I want to talk about this is that I don't want people to act all shocked. It's like, but wait, like, the show's different. And because I know that they're trying to push hard when we get close to May. Shooty will probably be on a couple of the talk shows, or Millie might be in a couple of the talk shows, that they'll do American press. And it's like, and they'll do the British press as well, of course. But the surprise that they seem to be really trying like the American market. It's like, yes, that's the point. That's the show now.
They should do like a world tour, like they'd made Peter Capaldi and Louise Coleman do.
So just moving on to, it's just because it came up. So recently confirmed, and this wasn't a shock, but one of the writers for the new series is Stephen Moffat. He has written and has filmed episode 3. Now, the reason I talk about this, Rick, is that it was a bit of online reaction. The whole thing is like, oh, Doctor Who's going back to the past. Doctor Who's like it's relying too much on the old stuff. He's bringing in his friend and his old writer. Is that a worry that they're going Doctor Who's dwelling too much in Doctor Who of the past with this move?
I don't think so. Well, first of all, when Davies left, I was kind of happy because it was like, all right, it's clear you need to go. When Moffat left, I had the same reaction. It's like, you're really scraping the bottom of the barrel. It's time to move on, bring in someone new. Both of them are no longer under the pressure that they were when they were trying to create the show before. And I think they're both extremely good at their jobs. So I'm kind of excited to see what Moffat's going to do.
Yeah, same thing to you, Emma.
The online reaction I saw is a bit like old watching June with old Steel Guy going, "Melissa Gaib! He's back." He's back. Rapturous was the reception that I saw. I think because obviously we have memories of look forward to the Stephen Moffat episode. Oh, he's going to drop a banger. Yeah, I'm happy to have the Maldi back.
I should, because I probably wasn't properly clear. When I said a lot of reaction, not all of it negative, and often there was a positive reaction to, like, a positive backlash to the negative reaction. It was just that the notion of Russell's just gone back to the past by bringing back Stephen Moffat, and he's written one episode. Like, the short answer to this is no, he's not gone back to the past. Don't be fucking ridiculous. It's one episode, and an episode, by the way, that the director, Julianne Robinson, she's directed actually episode 1 as well. She asked Moffat, what's the tone of this? Apparently Moffat's response was Hitchcock, and that was it. That in and of itself, I don't have any issue with. It is funny, there has been a video doing the rounds online that I think it was 2019.
I was just going to ask you a Doctor Who question. I mean, something I asked you earlier.
Well, where did the Daleks come from?
Skaro. Correct.
Gotta get harder.
And Kembel.
Nice.
Yeah, forget about Kembel.
I was going to ask if you still find yourself coming up with ideas and thoughts for Doctor Who, because I think you've said before that you... No.
He never did at the time, frankly. I had to do it all.
I used to get his factory sweepings. That's what I had. He said, do you think of stories?
Yeah, I kind of do.
Do you?
I think of monsters.
Stop with me like that.
No, do you never think, you see something scary and think, that could be a Doctor Who monster? I do think that.
Do you?
I honestly do.
I see films and I think, well, that's Doctor Who and stuff.
Yeah. I also do that. I think how much better almost everything would be if Doctor Who was in it.
Yes, that's very true. Wuthering Heights especially would be brilliant.
You never would have thought that they both would have been coming back based on that interaction. And as long as Moffat had enough time, because he's got he's got a show with Karen Gillan and Hugh Bonneville coming out quite soon, later this year, I think. He wrote a play. He had a couple of shows on TV, I think, a year ago, maybe 18 months ago. He's been busy. He's been working. So as long as he had enough time to really drill down on what this episode could be, then I'm generally fine about it. And if the episode's not good, we'll say so. And if it's great, we'll say so. The whole idea of you're not moving the show forward, it's same old stale stuff. And there were a few tweets online that almost made the argument better than I could, with like the showrunner's priority has to make good Doctor Who, first and foremost. Doesn't matter where it comes from. And that fandom can worry too much about how things look rather than the actual end product, which is the thing that really matters. My favourite tweet from someone was, how dare RTD assemble a team of trusted and critically acclaimed talent to launch Doctor Who worldwide? He should hire me instead. Which does feel like the tone. Does feel like the tone of some fans, and not just Doctor Who, when they complain about stuff. Like, you're just mad that you didn't get the job because you somehow think your idea is a genius. If somehow people read your AO3 post and really didn't think you were actually that good. The idea of who he's got to work on the show, I just don't give a shit. Is the show good? And that's the only thing I really care about. More than anything. That's the priority. And once you get that right, then we can talk about all the other stuff around it.
As a Star Trek fan, I've never seen a show or a concept absolutely shat on by the internet without even having seen frame one of it. So I'm shocked.
Yeah. Another thing, we don't know anything about the episode. We haven't seen anything about it. And yet, some people are already ready to say, Moffat must go. Bring this to an end, but just anything, Emma, that we might have missed that we haven't mentioned yet?
No, I think that's everything I was thinking about. Yeah, I can't think of anything else.
Was there anything either you want to add, Rick?
I'm very optimistic about what's coming up, and I'm looking forward to it.
Which I think is actually the most important thing right now. It's nice to be. The past few months of Doctor Who has actually been a good place to be. We definitely hope that continues, because for a good few years it wasn't. And that's as well my general viewpoint of, did you forget what it was like last time under the last regime? I don't want to, because almost every podcast feels like I'm taking shots at Chris Chibnall. It's like, he's moved on. He's actually got a play on right now. So I don't mean to like feel like I'm picking on a guy when the problem is always just with, not the person, of course, just the work we got. But that was not fun. That time was really not fun as a fan. And this time feels a lot more fun. The only little things I just want to mention before we finished. I was talking to a friend about this. I mentioned this briefly when our Church of Ruby Roll podcast, of the very interesting thing about Ruby being a white child, now young woman, being raised by a black Jamaican family in Notting Hill, and from she was a baby, not like when she was 15 or whatever. So in a way, like, Ruby's a white woman. I'm sure Emma's met people like this. I met people like this. White people who in a weird way are culturally black, and not performatively. I mean just organically because of what they grew up around. So like Ruby's taste in food, for example, I would have imagined she's very, very comfortable with like Caribbean and maybe African cuisine. The Notting Hill Carnival probably took place around the corner from where she lived. The idea that she probably would have been going to Carnival, her mum would have taken her since she was a little kid. So she's very au fait around black people, black music, black culture. It's the kind of thing, because we know Shooty's got his afro out in episode 2, the Devil's Court episode. So there is, maybe they won't do this, but there is space for like a joke of a white person trying to touch Shooty's hair and then she stops it happening. Like, she would know you don't do that with black people's hair. She kind of would be the quote unquote ally in that respect. And even, I don't think she'll be speaking in patois herself, even though her mum and her gran do, but she'll be very comfortable hearing it spoken. That's kind of cultural things, and say no matter where you grow up. Like, she would have grown up with reggae in the house. Black food, black music, black vernacular, black fashion. I don't know if they will. It's not like you must do this or you've let the character down, but it's there. And it's not one of these, oh, we're trying to force it to appeal to our black fans. That's just what that character would naturally be like anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, like, sort of, if they did that, I mean, how would it be? I mean, are they going to be sitting outside the barbershop having curry goat, or are they going to be just, chatting or whatever? I mean... And
there's ways you can do it. You can be really explicit, like your example, or you can just be very, very subtle with it. And just once or twice. You don't have to do it, like, every week. But the opportunity's there. And, yeah, personally, something I'd like to see, because I think it shows as well the different ways that race functions in Britain compared to other countries, because, obviously, the American style is always kind of the most culturally pervasive, just because it's America. So the idea of white people and black people interacting in that way, I think, is something that's very specifically British.
You've got to remember, though, it's being written by white people, so would they even think of that?
Yeah, even though I think at least one of the directors is black. I think, and the director of the Christmas episode was black. There was just a little bit of patois thrown in, not much. That I think also would be a bit too try-hard and also wouldn't feel realistic. It has to be done organically, but there is scope for it. So we'll see how culturally black Ruby Sunday will be written as. I would expect, no matter what, whether the episodes will work or not, some pretty memorable set pieces. I think there'll be certain scenes that we'll remember. Not just action, some monologues and stuff. Which is something you see in Doctor Who anyway, but that's something, with the money that Russell has and the way his mind works, I think that's something that we could see a lot of. Some really memorable set pieces over these episodes. And yes, let's be real about this, he is going to go a little too far on occasion. He is going to be like, oh, you didn't need to do that, Russell.
I feel like this Beatles episode, the Devil's Court episode 2, is going to be the real litmus test. I feel like if you dig that and you're basically on this ride for until the end, it's going to be a big kind of inflection point. Again, sort of talking musical episodes, like the musical episode of Strange New Worlds was. I think like you're into it or you're not. And I think if you're really not into it, it could be a real like switch off point. And the fact that it's episode 2, it's not even like you get invested and then they drop that on you in like episode 7. So it's like, really get on board with this or just fuck off.
That episode, the positioning of it in the series seemed quite deliberate.
Also, I'm really interested to see episode 2 particularly because like I want to try and watch it with my dad. Because my dad is a lifelong Beatles fan, like mega fan, grown up, lived with them his whole life. So I've seen some Beatles nerds complaining about the guitars they're using, that they're the wrong ones.
For Christ's sake.
I would love to watch it with him because he's going to have notes. I thought it was also interesting, actually, talking music, that they used a David Bowie track. They used Changes.
Yeah, that specific version of Changes, yeah.
Changes as well. But, I mean, it reminded me, I don't know if you remember, way back in Series 10, There was all those David Bowie references in Series 10. References to the lyric in Knock Knock. They actually have like a David Bowie album in it and all that sort of thing. So I was like, oh, that's interesting. So I probably, again, mystery boxes means nothing, I expect, because David Bowie's basically his whole discography is now basically available to use commercially after he died. I think Imam, his wife, has like sort of sold some of the rights to his music. Like you hear it pop up in adverts and stuff now. But yeah, that's probably why obviously they're using changes, because as well got a budget for a big track for the, because obviously it's got references to timing, the lyrics are changes, which is useful. But I just thought, oh, isn't that interesting? Means nothing probably, but there you go.
I mean, there was something to maybe keep an eye on. But yes, there will be a couple of, I mean, the Beatles one that will either make Beatles fans very happy or very unhappy one way or another. You know, like the hair, that's not how the hair was. Like John's Scouse accent wasn't that deep, something like that. And that wasn't how George was. George was funnier than that. I'm sure there is going to be plenty of that happening. And no doubt, episode 8 will end with an absurd Deus Ex Machina to resolve everything.
Do you know what else though? I was like, obviously the thing that popped up as well is this whole thing about the end of the last episode of Giggle. Doctor saying about basically getting rid of all his trauma, dumping it onto the 14th Doctor to work through it essentially. And so broken free of all that stuff, the thing about doing therapy. But I mean, the thing of like, obviously there's going to be something going on with Ruby. I was like, you can't release the man from this and then give it all to man again. Just let him live.
Yeah, it's like a whole new bunch of trauma that will probably go untreated. I think is very likely.
Yeah, I know, but I was like, oh please, just let my man live.
And when I was thinking of set pieces, you think of the Spice Up Your Life scene from the Giggle, something like that.
Yeah.
Like I saw that, and you remember, oh, so that's what Russell wanted to do at the start of Last of the Time Lords, with Tennant in the wheelchair and John Sim wheeling him around.
Yeah, with the Scissor Sisters.
Yeah, with the Scissor Sisters song, but they didn't have the means, so they just had to literally just film him wheeling him around. So that's the kind of stuff that Russell may have and had in his head now that he's got more money. But all of this, we will stop speculating and actually start analysing. And once we get into our next episode.
Just really quickly, something just occurred to me, and maybe y'all have knowledge I don't. I was thinking about something that we didn't see in the trailer. No Daleks.
No, but as someone pointed out is, I mean, obviously as well with Disney have got previous for this. It could be that they are in it, but they've been taken out of whatever shot they are in for the trailer. Like there's one that someone pointed out was, is that bit where there's like big dust cloud coming down the street of London. You could well have like a monster, probably maybe Daleks, in there somewhere, and they're just not in it. So like the whole kind of like number of jewels in the Infinity Gauntlet in the Endgame trailer type thing going on. They are in it, but they're just not in this, if you see what I mean. But the whole thing about the Daleks have to appear once a year, they can't keep the rights thing, apparently is a bit of I've repeated that, but apparently it's apocryphal. It's not true at all. They don't have to be in it.
I'm all for less Daleks myself. The Daleks are like the Borg of Doctor Who. I think they've
played out.
Put some distance between uses.
Yeah, but no, Emma's actually right. Like we were seeing that with trailers for Marvel films and stuff. They recut them and re-edit them and rub stuff out that you actually see later in the film because they don't want to give stuff away. In fact, that was the case with Doctor Who as well. They've done that with the trailers for the 60th.
They've actually sort of changed things in real time. Like, I mean, again, it's a bit of a tangent. But when WandaVision dropped, the people who watched it early basically saw one version of the last episode, and then people came to it later. It was not much, but slightly tweaked. Like there's a couple of like effect shots and a couple of bits like edited out, edited in, and there were distinct differences though. So they changed things in real time as well. I don't rule out anything in that respect.
No, that's fair. And the other Disney thing I've got to mention is because this is a 2-part season premiere, that's actually a very Disney thing as well. Dan Landor did that with that show. They got Shogun, it's a Hulu show, but it's Disney Plus for us. I think
Mandalorian, I think they did as well.
Yeah, I think Acolyte, that show The Acolyte, I think that's starting with a 2 opener. So that's kind of, I think, a Disney thing of anyway, we're going to show you the first 2. What that means is obviously 7 weeks rather than 8 weeks until Christmas, as far as the episode goes. So there's a lot to look forward to and a lot to get involved with. So if you have any additional thoughts on what we've spoken about, you can email us at analyzingdoctorwho@gmail.com. And we're on Twitter and Instagram at analyzingdw. Analyzing is spelled with an S. That was Emma, Rick, thank you for both being here.
Thank you for having me.
Yeah, cheers, mate.
And thank you for listening. We'll be back in May to analyse the first and second episodes of a new series of Doctor Who. Until next time. Our logo is courtesy of Scott Mattison. His work can be found at planetrisecreative.com and on Twitter at planetrise. Our theme tune is by Mike Mould. We can be reached at analysingdoctorwho@gmail.com and on Twitter at analysingdw.